5:30. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Being the appointed hour, I hereby call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. Matt, would you please give us a roll call?
Certainly. Jim Morrison. Here. Gregory Rush. Present. Molly Bells.
Here.
Trip York.
Here.
Tim Thompson. Here. Candace Sullivan.
Present.
Richard Parsons. Here. And excused are Jim Bisbee and Mark Wagner.
Okay.
So we do have a quorum.
Very good. So in preparation for our hearing tonight, the Historic Preservation Commission is a public commission appointed by the City of New Bern's Board of Aldermen. It is responsible for preserving and safeguarding New Bern's locally designated historic districts, being downtown and Riverside. It follows U.S. Department of Interior standards, state statutes, city ordinances, and New Bern's historic guidelines. Two of the major tasks of the HPC include approving applications for a certificate of appropriateness and preventing demolition of historic structures due to neglect. The HPC holds a quasi-judicial hearing on an application for a certificate of appropriateness. The Commission hears sworn testimony and evidence provided by the applicant, by parties who receive notice of the hearing, and by others who can justify that they have relevant evidence and are directly affected by the application. The Commission cannot consider comments based on personal likes or dislikes, hearsay, or personal opinion that cannot be directly related to specific historic guidelines. Likewise, Commissioners shall refrain from stating personal opinion, personal likes or dislikes, or hearsay during a hearing. The Commission's decision on an application is based solely on the testimony and evidence presented at a hearing that directly relates to historic guidelines. And so at this point, Matt, I think we're ready to swear in anyone who wishes to speak tonight.
Sure. All right, anyone who wishes to speak tonight, please come forward and we'll swear you in. And especially who've already signed in with you. All right, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
All right, thank you. And if you haven't already signed in up here, you will need to do so. I don't see that many.
And so while we get the last few signatures on the list of speakers, I'm going to summarize the hearing process for COA applications. In general, we will conduct a hearing on a CO application abiding by the following. The HPC administrator provides an overview of the application. The applicant presents the application. Proponents and opponents who receive notice of the hearing present evidence. Rebuttal is allowed by the applicant and by proponents and opponents who receive notice. Others who can justify that they have relevant information will be directly affected are then allowed to present evidence. The HPC administrator presents staff's findings, and then the applicant has a final opportunity to make final comments. Then at that point, the commissioners will discuss the evidence and engage in exchange of information with the applicant. And then ultimately, we'll call for a motion, and the commissioners will issue some type of motion. And that motion can be in the form of approval, approved with conditions, or denied. All right, so with that, I believe I've hit all the proper marks.
Can I request that you go back to number 2 and ask if there are any adjustments to the agenda?
Yeah, are there any adjustments to the agenda?
None that I know of, but in case there were from the...
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
we are secure in that. So at this point, I believe that brings us to 514 East Front Street.
That's correct. All right, we'll start with our review of that. This is the front page of the application for 514 East Front Street. You can see they've provided the information requested, and they have signed and dated the application. They've also attached a page with additional information. All right, and then a series of plans. These were the first ones submitted that are helpful just to show the location of the project we're talking about. East Front Street is at the bottom and north is to the left. So the red square area is the addition that's being proposed. And then there is two red lines here that show enclosing the existing portico that's out there on the back side of this house. And this is an enlargement of that turn now sideways with north to the top. Yes. And then this is a nice three-dimensional view photo showing that the powder room would be the area on the red area on the right, and then the enclosure of the portico on the left there, outlined in red. Give you an idea, orient you to this project. It's essentially building this powder room on the existing deck. It's up there. And this shows detail from their mantelpiece that gives inspiration for the stained glass window that they're proposing. This is an example of stained glass window from that particular, from their proposed or their preferred fabricator artist. This photo represents essentially the screen or storm door that is proposed for the doorway into the portico on the side. And this is an example of a nearby neighbor that has a similar kind of addition on their building. And now this is the actual plan. You can see the entry, what's shown as entry, and you can see the bathroom for the toilet, and a window on the right, and the storm door at the bottom will only be swinging out, not in apparently. And the existing columns for the portico are to remain, the existing pilasters are to remain, and it'll be just the addition of then the new two walls, the one with the window and then the one at the back of the powder room. And they're, of course, adding a roof over that. And so from the outside, the elevation view of this then would look like this. This is on the left here where my cursor is circling is where the existing portico is, and it'll be filled in with solid wood siding. And then to the right of where the powder room is here's the elevation with the window, and the gutter that's shown there is already existing. That wall for the powder room will also have wood siding. There's the notes at the bottom. And there's also a corner trim at that side, and we'll see in a second then the other end view. So the other roll at the end of the powder room is also solid wood siding. The view from the doorway side of the portico is here. Simply the doorway fits in the opening that's there. And so now we have our zoning and inspections review for this. The Zoning administrator states that it meets the requirements of the land use ordinance. The project does not appear to expand beyond the footprint for the home. Setbacks appear to be met. And then the chief building inspector indicated that the project will require a building permit. And then we're ready with our findings and evaluation.
Okay, great. And perhaps before I got you started, I should have confirmed we do have an applicant tonight.
Oh, yes, I did see her.
Okay, great. And you may want to come up. Do you have anything further to add to Matt's overview?
And you just state your name, at least.
I am Maureen McFarland.
Thank you.
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, great. Hang close. Is there anyone who received notice who would like to speak for or against this project? Okay, seeing none. The applicant has no further comments, so I believe that probably brings us back to staff findings.
Okay. All right, so these are the findings for an evaluation for Richard McDonald and Maureen McFarland. The project address is 514 East Front Street. The historic property name is the Increased Bradley House, also known as Gull Harbor, and was built circa 1815 to 1818. It is a contributing structure, and the National Register inventory description describes it as from 2003. Describes it as 2.5 stories, 3 bays wide, 3 bay deep, entrance in south elevation, pedimented entrance porch, gabled dormers, tall interior chimney, gable end roof. For the Sandbeck description of 1988, the only passage referring to the rear of the house is, quote, 2 dormers on the front slope and 1 on the rear, unquote. So for 514 East Front Street, the proposal is to include a small addition in the Tertiary AVC. And staff submits the following historic district guidelines, design standards or guidelines that may be appropriate to this application. For design principles, 3.1.1, 2, and 4. For modifications, 3.2.1 and 2. For additions, 3.3.1, 2, and 3. For walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.1 and 4. For windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.2, 3, and 6. For entrances, 4.4.1 and 5. For roofs, 4.5.1 and 4. For wood, 5.2.1 and 2. For paint, 5.4.2 and 3. The statements of fact based on the information contained in the application are: the structure is a contributing resource in the tight weave development pattern. 2, the project is an addition to a contributing structure in the Tertiary AVC. 3, the proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. 4, the zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 5, the application is not incongruous with the guidelines. That concludes our staff report.
Okay, great. And Ms. Maureen, anything to add at this point? Or are we still good?
I will add something very quickly, and
Sure.
that is, we really are trying not to do anything to the interior of the house. So we had a number of people who came through and said, well, you could, to make a powder room on the first floor, you could blow out the wall in the formal dining room, or you could take the side hall at the end and make that a full bath. And because the house is from the early 1800s, we don't want to do that. We don't want to negatively impact the original structure. So this powder room is on an addition that was put on in the 1960s, and that's the kitchen. So the kitchen was put on like the 50s or 60s, and this is on the porch of the addition, so it's the same footprint of the house. And the idea is, don't mess around with the historical details because it's so pristine inside. And this was kind of what we came up with, having an outhouse.
Yeah, that sounds like a good approach. So commissioners, what questions do we have?
think you mentioned it in design review, the wall on the inside of the powder room, were you saving that wood? That it's going, the siding that is now outside and will be in the powder room, is that wood going to be covered, retained?
I think we're keeping it, is that what you mean? So for the addition from the 1950s, that has a wall on it, and then when we make the powder room, it will be against that wall. So I guess inside, we could leave that from the 50s. I mean, I guess it depends on how good it is.
Yeah, just, I mean, it looks like you're not bothering historic fabric, and that was the only thing that I thought about.
Oh, thank you. But when I say that, I think maybe not worried about the 1950s component, but more like the 1810, 1815.
But I think, it's a good design, in my opinion, and it does meet the guidelines.
Thank you.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Morris, and the modifications are to an existing contemporary structure. You're really not touching the original historic fabric of the house, and I commend you for that.
All right, well, if we're fresh out of input and examination, perhaps we could venture a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I find the application for a certificate of appropriateness for 514 East Front Street is not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, sections 15411 through 15429, and New Bern's Historic District Design Standards, also known as guidelines, based on the following specific guidelines. Design principles 3.1.12 and 4, modifications 3.2.1 and 2, additions 3.3.1, 2, and 3, walls, trim, and ornamentation 4.2.1, 4.2.4, windows, doors, and openings 4.3.2, 3, and 6, entrances 4.4.1 and 5, roofs 4.5.1 and 4, wood 5.2.1 and 2, paint 5.4.2 and 3. The structure is a contributing resource in the tight weave development pattern. Project is an addition to a contributing structure in the Tertiary AVC. The proposed design, components, and materials meet the requirements of the Historic District standards. The zoning administrator and the chief building official reviewed this project and commented accordingly. The application is not incongruous with the guidelines. So moved.
Okay, we've got a motion. Do we have a second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Can we have a motion to issue a COA?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And then lastly, we have a new twist to make. We need a motion to approve the written decision.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Good work.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate your effort in bringing that project together. All right, now that brings us to item C on the agenda, 817 Pollock.
817 Pollock Street. Okay, this is the application, and again, all the information is filled out on the front, and then signed and dated on the back by their designated representative. And these are, this is a photo of the front of the house, although the project is in the back of the house, but just to give some context to the project. Yeah, let's see, there was. 1 second. Oh, no, there is no authorization because the owners are present, correct? Yes, okay, that's what it was. So,
I did it again, didn't I? Go ahead.
okay, so, no, you didn't. We had a question here from our attorney. So then this is a view of the back of the house from the accessory structure towards the back of the house, so also looking over the backyard. You'll see that deck there, and then the deck is in the foreground here. The deck is to be removed, but primarily we're talking about the accessory structure here. And you can see it has metal roof and these 3 sets of doors, or what appear to be doors. This is then the right-hand side of the structure. Then the back of the right half of the back of the structure. And then the left side of the structure, we'll see another one from another angle here. So as we scroll up, you'll see, first of all, down here, there's 2 doors, and then there's also a door for the second, or the attic area. All right, so this is going to be a little big, make it smaller. Here we go. So these are, or is the architectural drawing for this project. And we'll start on the right side with the front view. On the right shows that of the 3 doors, the middle one will become new glazed door openings. So doorways with glass, and then on the left and right side, the existing door panels will be fixed in place. Then on the left side, the left-hand door, the one towards the back, will be infilled with wood siding to match the rest. The upper attic door will be used as infill, and the right-hand door will be replaced with a new glass and metal door with a side light. There's also a new gutter and downspout along the front. Other than that, oh, and then you can see here also on the roof on the back, there will be a new skylight. All the existing fencing will remain. And pull over here to the plan view. Here it shows the deck is removed underneath the tree, and then there'll be a little bit of paving added over to the doorway on the side. And then this also shows a square, this square symbol represents the skylight that is above. There's also on the back, there'll be a new window with a shutter matching the existing opening covering. So, and then here's a rendering of that. So just a few modifications, that's it. Then we have our zoning and inspections report. I have to make it larger so we can all read it. Sorry. Okay, so for this one, the zoning administrator says it does meet the requirements of the land use ordinance. There's no expansion of footprint that appears to be taking place. And the chief building inspector indicates that it will require a building permit. Okay, then we're ready with our findings.
And so did we have an applicant or representative of the applicant who would like to add anything to Matt's overview?
I think Matt has...
Identify yourself.
Excuse me?
Identify.
Charles Francis, architect on the project.
Thank you.
I think Matt has taken care of it pretty well, but if I remember correctly, it's not a metal door, it's a wood door, Matt.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for the correction.
And Mr. Presiding Officer, if we can just note for the record that this gentleman is speaking, however, he is not the owner of the property. The owner of the property is present, and he's proceeding and representing her with her consent.
Okay.
The designer of the project.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Just because we don't have a written authorization in the record. let's
Yeah,
just note
did you need me to say that? No, you've already
just note
said it.
that. Yes, sir. It's in the record now.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who's received notification who would like to speak for or against the project? Are there any others here who would like to speak for or against the project? All right. Hearing none, I think that takes us to staff's analysis.
Well, let me say up front that, and it's already stated, but there's no documented reference to this existing accessory structure, so there's little reason to assume that it represents any significant historic fabric.
All right, if you'll let me get started.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. So this is for Catherine O'Brien and C.R. Francis Architecture at 817 Pollock Street. The historic property name is the Albert Castet House, circa 1915. The date of the accessory structure is shown in the county assessor's information as 1940, but that is not entirely reliable for accuracy. The status of the accessory structure is non-contributing. The National Register inventory from 2003, there is no reference to the accessory structure, but for context, the primary structure is described as 2 stories, 3 bays wide, hip roof porch with lattice brick foundation, paired posts, pedimented gable with circular attic vent and interior chimney. From Sandbeck in 1988, there is no reference to the accessory structure either. House details are described and start with the exterior of the Castet house combines the long popular gable front form with porch details and facade fenestration characteristic of the period 1910 to 1920 in New Bern. So for 817 Pollock Street, to include a remodel, the project is to include a remodel to the existing accessory structure in the Tertiary AVC, and staff submits the following historic district design standards guidelines that may be appropriate to this application for design principles 3.1.1, 2, and 4, modifications 3.2.1 and 2, for walls, trim, and ornamentation 4.2.1, 4, and 5, for windows, doors, and openings 4.3.1 and 3, for roofs 4.5.1 and 2, for wood 5.2.1 and 2, and paint 5.4.2 and 3. Statements of fact based on the information contained in the application are: the accessory structure is a non-contributing resource in the tight weave development pattern. 2, the project is remodel construction to a non-contributing structure in the tertiary AVC. 3, the proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. 4, the zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 5, the application is not incongruous with the guidelines. That completes our staff report.
Yeah, thank you. Charles, anything else before we get into discussion? All right, commissioners, what questions do we have?
I'm not sure what Commissioner Thompson started. What were you bringing up?
I said none.
Yeah, just, I'm sorry I jumped ahead. But this is an accessory structure that has no documented reference as far as historic fabric is concerned. So,
And I think it's meeting all the guidelines, well done.
Seems like a rather gentle handling of the project relative to the existing context. Any other comments or observations?
It's just a nice rehabilitation.
Yeah, please do.
All right, I'll move to find the application for 817 Pollock Street to be not incongruous with the New Bern's Code of Ordinance Sections 15.411-15.429 and New Bern's Historic District Guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Can you scroll up, Ben?
Oh, sorry.
So we'll start with design principles, 3.1.1, 2, and 4. Modifications, 3.2.1 and 2. Walls and trim ornamentation, 4.2.1, 4.2.4, and 5. Windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.1, 4.3.3. Moving to roofs, 4.5.1, 4.5.2. Wood, 5.2.1 and 2. Paint, 5.4.2 and 3. And findings of fact, the proposed project is the accessory structure is a non-contributing resource in the tight weave development pattern. The project is remodel construction in a non-contributing structure in the Tertiary AVC. The proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. The zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed the project and commented accordingly. The application is not incongruous with the guidelines.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Can we have a motion to issue a certificate of appropriateness?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. I'll let Matt take his choice on the second.
Yep.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And then lastly, we need a motion to authorize or to approve the written decision.
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Very good.
What is this third vote that you took?
It's a new procedure required by the general statutes whereby we have to issue a written decision to go along with all the other hoops we jump through, apparently to stay compliant. Yeah. Well, it's new to us as of tonight, so I appreciate you bearing with us, and hopefully it's not too awkward.
Yeah, I think Mr. Shaw pointed out to me, what's nice is you get that much sooner than you would have in the past.
But it's not something we've done in the past. I think it's a second document. Usually you get a document for your COA, and my understanding is this would be a second document. So, but a great question. Yeah, thanks for being here. Okay, next item on the agenda, 720 East Front Street, and I see our applicant. So Matt, if you would proceed.
Certainly. So this project this evening already has a COA, so we don't have the application shown here, but we do have the plans from first of all, the COA and then the approved plans. So here's what a COA looks like for everyone who hasn't seen one yet. A bunch of signatures and the conditions and expiration date and such. Now these are the plans that were approved at the time. I'll have to make this a lot smaller. And this particular drawing is important for tonight because it's been modified in the amendment proposal. Primarily to note here it's the backyard area here where the garage is. It shows a retaining wall straight up the drawing here, and that has now changed to be an angle which connects the neighbor's retaining wall, which is just to the left of the top of the proposed wall or approved wall, and then down to the right here where the existing retaining wall exists on the neighboring property to the south. So that's one change, primarily to the plan view. Let's see, we'll go to the next one. All right. The other thing is they have removed the excavation for the basement, but in the approved plan, we show the basement and the various things that we're trying to do there. So in the new plan, this sheet will be gone. And then this is the first floor plan, which basically pretty much remains unchanged except for some change. There don't need these steps here anymore, and there will be some brick paving here. Also, the steps shown here to go down to ground level at the retaining wall have been removed because they now have a pier going out to the river. Then this is then the next floor, which this would just change just right, but it doesn't. Anyway, second floor doesn't change. The elevations. So I've circled here in red. The approved plan shows a short 3-foot high brick retaining wall or garden wall, and the lawn was at pretty close to the top of the wall in this scenario, and that will be removed. Then on the side, again, that wall wrapped around the left, here shown on the left, wrapped around the corner and started down the driveway. And the garage was located lower than the soon-to-be proposed ground level. So this, how do I put this? This solid line here is where the garage will be now, is proposed now to be located, the floor of it. And so the entire garage is going to be elevated about 4 feet. So all of this change here with a sloping driveway down to the garage will not happen. And again, we'll see that later. The only other kind of non-related change is that out of these 3 screen panels, the middle panel will be solid and a little bit wider, making the 2 end panels of screen more narrow. Again, we'll see that again, but we need to point this out. Also, as I mentioned, in the approved plan, the garage was lower, which essentially put the second level of the garage at the floor level of the house. That will no longer be the case. And I circle here also the stairway will be gone. Also, you'll see in the drawings that the wall will be gone in the drawings because they're not in the same location. It's not in the same location as before, I guess. Then on the side, they are also removing the wall on this side because the neighbor's yard will coincide with the height of the lawn on this side once they remove the 3 feet off the top. The next. So, that said, now let's look at the revised plan. So we'll have a full set of plans here, complete with all the photographs that were also in the previous plan. If we want to see that, we can. So here's the new site plan, which is a surveyor's plan, and you can see now the big black diagonal line across here is now the new location of the retaining wall, and the double line here going off to the right is the new pier. So it lands at the top of the retaining wall, so the stairs are no longer necessary. And otherwise, the plan view here is the same with the addition of that paving I was talking about. Let's see. So we'll go now. As I said, there is no basement plan. And the garage has been elevated to the point which the bottom of the stairway from the deck comes to. So all of this and the driveway are all this herringbone pattern brick, and the driveway are at the same level. There's no steps there like there were before. This may become a little more clear when we look at the side view. Let's see what else. The second floor plan is the same. All right. On the front view, you can see now the brick garden wall is gone. You'll also see here that the garage doors meet the ground level that's shown here at 7 feet above sea level. And that's the elevation of the garage, same as before. Then from the side, we no longer have that sloping driveway down to a lower garage. And this stairway you see here is actually the stairway to the deck beyond. This is not same as the one before. And you see here the solid panel in the middle of this side of the screen porch. Everything else is the same on here, no changes in the fenestration or any of that. Same thing with the side of the garage. All the garage is the same, just up higher than it was before. The floor level of the house itself has not changed either, because it's dictated by our guidelines. That stays the same, so the entire height of the house is the same as it was before. The house is not moved up or down. They just filled in the design, filled in and eliminated the basement. And then this is then the north side of the house, again, where we had a 3-foot-high brick wall that became a 5-foot-high brick wall at the back. That is all gone, because now their lawn is matching the lawn of the neighbors. So it does turn out this stairway is longer than it was before, because the ground level was about where this post is and going straight across at that point. That would be the only change to the design of the garage. And that's interior stuff. So then we have our Z&I zoning and inspections report. The zoning administrator has indicated that it meets the requirements of the land use ordinance. Per the plan submitted, all setbacks are met. However, the separation must increase to 8 feet for the accessory structure. This was signed on the 13th, I believe, and that very day, the architect issued a new plan which meets that requirement. So we're fine on that with the current set of plans, and the chief building inspector, of course, this will require a building permit. All right, then for 720 East Front Street, we're ready with the findings and evaluation.
Yeah. And so at this point, does the applicant have anything they want to add to Matt's overview? No. Okay. Probably ought to come talk in the microphone. Is there anyone who received notice who would like to speak for or against the application? Are there any others who would like to speak for or against the application? Okay. I guess that brings us back to you, Matt.
Okay. So this is the report for Joanne Lang and Go Architectural Design for the project at 720 East Front Street. There is no historic property name because it's a vacant parcel and therefore is also neither contributing nor non-contributing. And the National Register inventory and Sandbeck also have no information about the property. 720 East Front Street, the project is to include an amendment to the approved COA for an infill house to add fill to the lot, eliminate the basement, and elevate the garage and driveway. So staff submits the following historic district design guidelines that may be appropriate to the application. Development pattern 2.1.1, 2, and 3. For utilities, 2.3.1, 2, 3, and 6. For landscaping, 2.4.3, 4, and 7. For fences and garden walls, 2.5.1. For accessory structures, 2.6.1, 2, and 2. For parking, 2.7.1 and 2. For waterfront modifications, 2.9.3. For design principles, 3.1.1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. For infill construction, 3.4.1, 2, 3, and 4. For foundations, 4.1.2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. For walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.4 and 5. For windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.2 and 3. For entrances, 4.4.4. For roofs, 4.5.4 and 6. For decks and patios, 4.6.2. For masonry, 5.1.3, 5, and 6. For metals, 3.3.3 and 4. For paint, 5.4.2, 3, 4, and 6. For contemporary materials, 5.5.1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Statements of fact, based on the information contained in the application in staff's judgment are: 1, the project is located in the tight weave development pattern. Proposal is an infill and accessory structure project. The proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. The zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 5, the application is not incongruous with the guidelines. The application does not include some information related to completion of the project that requires review by either staff or the HPC. If the application is approved, the following conditions should be made for the COA. Plans and information for the utilities, landscaping, and the exterior lighting shall be approved by and a COA issued by HPC staff before the final inspection for these trades will be conducted by the building inspector. That's the end of our status report.
Okay, thank you. All right, Sarah, any final comments? We'll come on up here, because before we get started, just had a couple questions. I don't remember the pier being part of the first application, and I assume it's not part of this application
We
as
did
well.
it separately.
Yes.
So that was
Okay.
a whole separate application that's been approved.
Perfect, so we don't need to review that.
That's all good.
And then secondly, and more importantly, Matt went over a number of the changes proposed relative to the drawings, and we had a good discussion and asked a lot of questions about what certain things meant and what elevation they were, or what grading was changing.
Yeah.
Has anything changed in your presentation tonight that was not reflected in our design review meeting relative to the grades? And we talked about the seawall, being in a different place at design review, and just want to make sure as a body of commissioners, we're all up to speed on the nuances of our discussion.
The only thing that's changed on my drawings are I put in the new retaining wall that the surveyor had. And also the accessory structure was closer to the house for some reason. And so we moved that back farther away so that it's now far enough away. But you'll see that new retaining wall gives a lot more land out in front of that accessory structure where there wasn't before. It was kind of in the wetland area, so that's really the only thing that's changed on my drawing. Nothing with the heights, that's all been approved and what was prior. And just for clarification, where the house is being, the 7 foot, where we like to start from, the foundation from, matches the yellow house to the left. And so that slope up from the sidewalk to that 7 foot matches that yellow house.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So, commissioners, where would we like to start?
Well, I don't see where the proposed amendments significantly change the nature of the original application. We're basically talking about a change in the retaining wall, slight change in the garage elevation, and then elimination in the basement, which really isn't obvious from the street for the most part.
And removing the garden wall.
Yeah, removing the garden wall. So I don't see how the amendment affects the original nature of the application.
Which your meaning means it qualifies as an amendment as opposed to a whole new COA.
Any other thoughts, observations?
I agree, the garage is obviously secondary, as all the things we decided the first time around. And materials, the design, everything is appropriate to the guidelines.
Any other comments? Can we have a motion to amend the application?
Mr. Chairman, okay, Mr. Chairman, I find that we find the proposed amendments to the certificate of appropriateness for 720 East Front Street to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, sections 15-411 to 15-429, and New Bern's Historic District Guidelines, based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact for the applicable guidelines: 2.1.1, 2.1.2, 2.1.3, 2.3.1, 2.3.2, 2.3.3, 2.3.6, 2.4.3, 2.4.4, 2.4.7, fences and garden walls, 2.5.1, accessory structures, 2.6.1, 2.6.2, parking, 2.7.1, 2.7.2, waterfront modifications, 2.9.3, design principles, 3.1.1, 3.1.2, 3.1.3, 3.1.4, 3.1.5, infill construction, 3.4.1, 3.4.2, 3.4.3, 3.4.4, foundations, 4.1.2, 4.1.3, 4.1.4, 4.1.5, 4.1.6, walls, trim and ornamentation, 4.2.4, 4.2.5, windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.2, 4.3.3, entrances, 4.4.4, roofs, 4.5.4, 4.5.6, decks and patios, 4.6.2, masonry, 5.1.3, 5.1.5, 5.1.6, metals, 5.3.3, 5.3.4, paint, 5.4.2, 5.4.3, 5.4.4, 5.4.6, contemporary materials, 5.5.1, 5.5.2, 5.5.3, 5.5.5, and 5.5.6. Findings of fact, the project is a tight weave development pattern. The proposal is for an infill and accessory structure project. The proposed design, components and materials meet the guidelines. Zoning administrator, chief building inspector have reviewed the project and commented, and the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. And the condition is that the applicant will come back with plans and information on utilities, landscaping, and exterior lighting when those decisions have been made.
Okay, I think we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Got a second. Any further discussion?
Just a question, could we allow the staff to deal with the second COA?
With what?
To deal with what? Could we allow the staff to deal with the second part of the COA in the condition?
Some of those are minor works, yes, sir.
Oh, yes, they are, they're all generally minor works.
Well, he didn't read that part of it.
Yes. So if you can amend your motion to, if you prefer, if you would like, to include the rest of the condition as recommended?
Yeah, I thought I stated that plans and information for utilities, landscaping, and exterior lighting can be approved. A COE issued by the staff.
Continue.
Before final inspection for these trades will be conducted by the building inspector.
Thank you. Just to clarify, by including that makes it clear to the building inspections what they have to do in order to ensure that the COA is, and these conditions are adhered to.
All right. So does everyone understand the motion at this point? All right.
Was there a second, Mr. Presiding Officer?
I thought there was, or did
I
we just...
seconded, but now
Don't jump into discussion.
I seconded it before, but then we had to go back.
So, do we need a second of the amended motion, you're saying?
Correct, yes.
You are correct.
I
Did we do that too? Okay.
I second the amended motion.
All right, so now we've got our operation in order. Any further discussion? So hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Yeah, and does this need the approval of the notice?
Of the written
decision?
Yes, sir.
So can we have a motion for the approval of the written decision?
First motion.
So I would like to adjust the written decision. It says at number 1,
Okay.
the application for a certificate of appropriateness, and caught that Mr. Thompson realized that this is an amendment to the certificate of appropriateness. So I'd like to change suggest a change to the written decision that it says the application for an amendment to the certificate of appropriateness for 720 East Front Street, et cetera.
So perhaps, Gregory, you could clean that up.
I approve the motion, or?
So you move to approve the written decision with the amendment proposed by Mr. Shelley.
I move to approve the written amendment for the amendment of Mr. Shelley approving the amendment.
Okay. That's great effort. And I presume we need a second for that.
Yes, sir.
Do we have a second? Second. And we got a second, so we're going to struggle through it.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Well done.
So those conditions won't hold up the building permit, it's just before final COA?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, before final inspection.
Final inspection.
Yeah.
So the next item on our agenda, 506 Craven Street.
Okay, so this is the application, and it's been filled out on the front and signed by the authorized representative and dated. And here is their owner's authorization. So this is the subject house, let's see, the drawings. And this shows essentially the front elevation, oblique elevation of the house. And we'll see what happens when we move down to the next page. We have some more photographs of the subject property, again, that elevation, and now this is, in the middle is the rear of the house. And then the third one is the yard view of the carport that is to be removed. And then this is the street view of the carport to be removed. Moving down. These are some other similar projects throughout the historic district. Garages and accessory structures. All right. Then this is the site plan. Make it smaller. The site plan for the project, the subject not the subject, but the primary structure is here on the left, the two-story frame dwelling, and then on this awkward shaped parcel, the carport and the proposed garage are here on the right side. And the one change that has happened since the design review is they added to the application to remove the dead tree here on the corner, which is right next to the structure. You can see here's a photograph of it. And then this is the same set of plans as before. Oh, I guess I should probably indicate. Oh, wow. We have dimensions locating the structure from the property lines. 6 feet from the, I guess it would be the northeast property line, and 3 feet from the northwest property line here in this corner, and 10 foot 3 inches from the street side property line, and then it is way more than 8 feet from the primary structure. All right, so, sorry about that. So these are the plans, again, haven't changed. The elevations are the same as in design review. This elevation on the left is the street-facing elevation with the garage doors and a small window on the second floor. The entrance door is here in the shadows on the right. And you can see the side of the balcony here on the left. Then this right view here is the view towards the, or from the, is facing the yard. And so we have a double set of doors here into a storage room and then a balcony above that. And on this view, you can see that the garage doors do have a small little metal shed roof over the door, over the garage doors, which if you look back at that elevation on the left, you can see that there. Then the back side of the garage has 2 windows at the first floor and 2 at the second. You can see the side view of the balcony here. And then as you go around to the fourth side, at the northeast side of the property, you have the garage door overhang here on the left, and then this is a second doorway in this alcove, sorry, a window facing that side, another door on the back rear, and then a small window at the top. You can see we have here double sets of gable end roofing here, and we'll see that here in a second on the roofing. Whoops. Sorry. So to come back here to the plan, so we're looking at 2 doors in that alcove. One goes into the garage directly, and the other one goes to a stairway to the top, and that other door on the side is for a storage space. All right, going back. All right, so that is the design, and we have our zoning and inspectors report. Don't worry, it didn't go away. There it is. So the zoning administrator says that it meets the requirements of the land use ordinance. Per the site plan, all setbacks are shown being met. Then the chief building inspector indicated it will require a building permit. And then we're ready with our evaluation and findings.
All right. Anything the applicant would like to add before we move on?
The owner has spoken with an arborist and we are awaiting that final report with the stamp. But in the meantime, we have this report about the tree, and I think it's pretty obvious from looking at it that that tree is not a healthy tree. And I apologize, we didn't have this at the previous meeting. I also want to add that we have, we looked at the Sanborn maps, and there, I thought I put that in my application, but I apparently have not. There is, on the Sanborn maps, there is a structure roughly where the carport is. And in this design, we have tried to stay within the footprint of the existing carport. So the distance from the property lines is what they are right now. It is if you look at the site plan, you can kind of see it kind of sticks out a little bit farther towards the house than what we've got it. And I should have just included the straight survey the way it was, but on the left where we've got the little storage shed, there's kind of a pad that kind of sticks out there. So we've tried to stay within that footprint because we wanted to be sensitive that its placement on the lot is different than what we would normally do, and it's just a very odd-shaped lot. So the idea was to make it almost look like a small house, as if it, along the streetscape, that it fit in that way. And if you can go to the photographs, I'd like to just point out a couple of things. Yeah, we can just, for the example projects.
Oh.
Sorry.
Which one would you like?
We can start with any of them. Just to point out that these are, two full-story structures, and what we've done. Okay, that one right there on Hancock Street is the same as this one. I don't know if you remember, I brought this project through, which they have not completed that project yet, but to do an opposite gable on either side to give more living space below. And so we've tried to be sensitive to the side wall, so the side wall of that second story is not a full story like the yellow one or the brick one, which are a full two-story. We've tried to just keep that a lower profile, and just because we understand that it's a large structure, and there's not a large structure right now, and that may be offensive to some people or cause excitement. And what we're trying to say is that, these two-story accessory structures are prevalent in the historic district, and we're trying to be sensitive to keeping it as low as possible. I think that there's another one down below, another photograph, sorry. Yeah, so this one on Linden Street, or actually faces Linden Street, and you can see above the garage space there's quite a bit of wall. And that's similar to what we are proposing for this structure, that above those garage doors you have that 5-foot stem wall, and then you can have open space up there. So, and on Linden Street, that garage faces Linden Street, as this one faces Craven Street. And I also included a house across the street, which we had done a project on, that has a garage door that faces Change Street. That's in the backyard of the project that faces Change Street, but it's a little bit to the left, the actual project, or the house itself. Oh, well, it's on there somewhere.
Yeah.
That one's on East Front. There it is.
Oh.
Oh, I should put them next to each other. So just trying to give some context to how we were thinking about this project and trying to be sensitive to it. And I have the Sanborn maps if anyone wants to take a look at that to see that is included there. On the Sanborn map, it shows a structure and what appears to be stairs to a second story, a first floor and a single story and a two-story structure on that lot. Yeah, sure.
Why are you doing that? What is the date of that Sanborn map?
I don't have it written here. I don't know. But somewhere between 1888 and, what is it, 1948? What's the last one? 32. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Okay. And so we've got another piece of evidence circulating. That kind of brings us to the point of, do any of the commissioners have any concerns about the additional evidence that's been submitted and its completeness for its purpose? And I realize you can't speak to the piece that hasn't come around yet, but I think we're okay, but I just thought I'd bring it up since we've got some new material.
I've also circled it on there because there's a lot of information on there.
Right there, I guess. All right, and while this is going around, I think we're okay with the additional paperwork. Is there anyone who received notification who would like to speak for or against the project?
And Mr. Presiding Officer, if you could have each speaker give their name and their address for the
Sure.
record.
On documents, I'm Robert Ruff, and I live at 510 Craven Street, which is the adjoining property.
Okay.
Everyone who will still speak to me calls me Mike.
All right, Mike.
First of all, I want to commend Richard and Linda for taking on what's going to be quite a project on that property. It has great historical significance. I'm speaking as a property owner tonight, and I'll try to stay as a property owner in this. I've been here since 2016, live at the property next door. The first thing I noticed when I bought the house is, please, somebody get rid of that carport. The site, I want to say one thing. I disagree that it's in the secondary AVC. Because Change Street has a sidewalk and curb cuts, I think this is one of the locations that's in the primary, secondary, and tertiary AVC for Change Street. It's behind the house, but it's completely visible from the street. Everything is visible from the street, and it's within 10 feet of the sidewalk. Now granted, there are a lot of sidewalks, a lot of houses that are large in scale that abut to those sidewalks, but the sidewalks came after the houses, not the houses coming up to the sidewalk. So in terms of the design itself and the elevations that I've seen, that's a remarkable design, and it would fit just about anywhere in the historic district, except on that site, for the following reasons. The footprint's good. This is in reference to 2.1.3. Footprint's good. It's proportional to the primary structure. No problems there. But in scale, it's too tall. In proportion to all of the other houses on the street, there are actually 2 houses on that street that are lower in profile than that house. Those houses are very tightly woven together, and if you stand on the street, it's going, and look down the street, it's going to stand out that that house is taller. I don't have any way of measuring this, but I make the roof line on that house at 29 feet, the ridge. That's a little high. That's higher than many of the small houses. The Bradham rental houses are smaller than that. The Tatum and Pitcock house next door is lower than that. So you have a big house, a low house, and a house in between some height that's too high as a 2-story house. Just because of scale.
Can I interrupt you for a second? When you're saying house, you mean accessory structure?
The accessory structure, sorry. As to it being into the primary AVC, by your own example in the guidelines, it's on the corner and the lot extends down 2 streets. You have 2 primary AVCs. You have one on the street address side and one on the side street. I believe this house sits in it. That's 2.6.1, in which they say that they're okay in secondary and tertiaries, but not generally approved in primaries. Now, to 2.4.1, which is landscaping, none of these examples here of projects have a canopy over them. This one would. Sitting 7.5 feet from the northeast corner of this structure is a pin oak, about 100 years old. It's 13 foot in trunk circumference, and it's 80 feet tall. The canopy towards Chain Street overhangs this structure. Some years ago, in concern for, after Florence, in concern for the limbs of that tree, which is on my property, being unhealthy and being a danger, I trimmed up that tree. I trimmed it 5 feet above the Tatum and Pitcock house, as a courtesy to them. The lowest limb in my yard is at 10 feet. The lowest limb in the Tatum Pitcock yard is about 20 feet. If we sought canopy relief for that tree to build this accessory structure, the height would be 31 feet, and we'd lose 12 feet of canopy over the house in order to get them 5 feet, if we assume that the peak of the roof is 29 feet. I don't have a copy of that.
So we'll give you a chance to speak after Mike's done. Excuse me, continue, please.
So in that regard, it's out of scale, or we don't have an arborist report for my tree, which would be affected. I don't know whose responsibility that is. I'm not building the structure, so I don't know whose responsibility having that. But those are the three things that lead me to believe that it's out of scale and that it's in a primary AVC, and accessory structures are not generally approved in the primary AVC. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Sarah, would you now like to have an opportunity to rebut?
Sorry, I just wanted to address a couple of things because on the drawings, on the elevation, we have the height of the structure at 25 feet. And I don't have, I've measured the entire actual house, and so I know how far it sits above the floor, and I know the height of each of the first floor, second floor, and attic space, and assuming that the roof, is up above that, I calculate that at about 30 feet for the main structure. So this structure is well below that, but I just wanted to point out that on the drawings, it's not 29 feet, it's 25 foot. And, if we change that roof slope down to a 612, it would probably be more like 23 feet. And also to point out that, like the previous structure, the previous project on 720 East Front Street, that is roughly the same height as this structure. And so, just thinking about, and all the examples that I gave, that those are similar in height to what we're proposing. Just wanted to point that out again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If I may, before we proceed, I'm going to try and fix the technical issues.
Do you mind if we,
You guys can't see anything.
do you mind if we continue?
I guess so, as long as nobody wants.
So my next step was going to be to ask if there are any other folks who received notice who would like to speak for or against the application.
My name is Ben Parrish. I live at 217 Chain Street, almost directly across the street from the proposal for this garage, which will face my street. And I agree that it's not necessarily in the tertiary area. In your guidelines, it states, locate accessory structures in secondary or tertiary and behind primary structures when possible. Accessory structures are to be secondary to primary structures in regard to mass, scale, form, and texture. This house, and then on 2.62, it is appropriate for outbuildings and similar structures with substantial foundations shall similar form and detailing as primary structures reduce those elements to scale to complement outbuildings massing, incorporating mass ornate and simple elements and failing to the primary structure. If this roof line were changed to a simple roof line, it doesn't appear that it's necessary to have balconies off from the second floor garage if that's going to be storage area, unless this is proposing there's going to be living space up there. And the guidelines, for what I've seen, doesn't indicate that there's going to be living space, but storage space. Or why could it be redesigned to change the roof line, remove some of this width of the garage, and possibly change the access to the storage, secondary storage, the interior of the garage. It's a massive structure to be sitting right in front of my house. And I would like you to look at the massiveness of this structure and reconsider the size that it will compare to the structures there. It will dwarf the house next door when you look at it. And also the tree that was referred to as It's a pecan tree, and the reason it looks the way it does today is because most recently the city came by and sheared many of the limbs from the tree because of the power lines. The tree is not dead, and it's not in bad shape. It's just that the city came and cut the limbs, pecan tree limbs, off of the tree because of the power lines. So I don't think there's a problem with the life of the tree if it was allowed to bloom out again. So I'd like you to consider the massiveness of this structure and how it relates to King Street, how it relates to the house. It's sort of an overkill, I think, because of the massiveness of it, to have the balconies and all this extra and such a broad roof line. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Ben. Rebuttal?
We've handed in the one opinion from the tree expert that we've had out there who says the tree is not in good shape and needs to be removed, and we're waiting on the arborist stamp for the actual arborist, and we'll have that in. If you look at the tree, all the other ones around it are green, and this one is bare. So it just, but regardless, the size of the garage, it's not any, it's the same footprint as the carport. It's not an overly sized garage. The examples that we've also shown in the district are similar size. It's a 2-bay garage with the side wings. In order to keep the stair from being inside the garage, we put it on the outside and had that lower roof to kind of just give it some definition so that it wasn't just a box with a roof, so that it had a little bit of character, you know, and tried to give a nod to the house itself with the front-facing gable and the side-facing gable, just to make it a little bit more attractive since it is so prominent on the street.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Is there anyone who has received notice who has something new to share that they would like to present either for or against the application? Yes, ma'am. And so I think we came up late with people signing in on the sheet. So those of you who speak, make sure you've signed in on the sheet, please. And so your name and address, please.
My name is Del Thomas. I live at 512 Craven Street.
Okay.
I have 3 brief things to say. First of all, there were 2 trees. There's one tree that was referred to by the architect and Ben was talking about. There's another, I believe it's an oak, that Mike was talking about, that is probably at least 100 years old, probably older. Second, I'd just like to say that everything about this has been focused on the fact that this is on Craven Street. The house is on Craven Street. The entrance to the garage is going to be on Chain Street. Thus, if there is any living space above, that address will be Chain Street. Second of all, on third, I'd like to say that the house, the Ward House, dates back to about 1770s or so. It's on the National Historic Register. There is nothing in the architecture of this garage that makes it look like it belongs to that house.
Okay, thank you. Okay, one more thing.
We've been told several times that it's the same footprint as the current carport. I'd just like to make the point that a carport, by definition, is an open structure with a roof and posts. This is one big, solid building.
Okay, thank you. Sarah, do you care to?
I just want to Yes, it's a solid structure. It's not intended that that second floor be living space. You know, I know you all are not concerned with use, but, you know, absolutely understand that that's not the use of it. But also, with the footprint, I don't know what to say. I mean, you know, we're talking about the footprint. I think you all understand what that footprint is. And the second tree, we're happy to look at it. I don't even actually know where that tree is. I know this one would need to come down, and that in order to do this project.
And so hopefully we're getting towards the end. Anyone else want to speak for or against the application who has something to share that we haven't talked about? Are we there? We think we're there. We might be there. We okay? Okay, I think it looks like we're okay there, and so as the applicant, you get one last chance to speak to the application if you so choose. Sarah?
Actually, I think that, I'm not sure there's much more we can add right now. We're happy to answer questions. I know we talked it through quite a bit in design review, and happy to answer questions.
Yep,
Thank you.
I'm okay with that. Let's see. Matt, that brings us to your staff assessment, if we're prepared to do that at this point.
Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. I think nobody's going to be able to see this. So this, listening will be our method of communicating. Let's see. All right. So, just feels awkward not being able to follow along. The findings and evaluation for Richard and Linda Mitchelling and Co-Architectural Design for 506 Craven Street. The historic property name is the Smith Whitford House, circa 1772 to 1782, remodeled circa 1875 to 1880. The date of the carport structure is shown in the county assessor's information as 1975, but that is not entirely reliable for accuracy. The accessory structure is a non-contributing structure. It's not listed in the National Register inventory description, but for context, the primary structure is described as 2.5 stories, 5 bays wide, Diocletian attic window, gabled roofs. The Sandbeck description from 1988, there's also no reference to the carport. House details are extensively described and includes this short overall description. The Smith Whitford House now stands as a handsome and unusual combination of Georgian and Victorian architecture. So for 506 Craven Street, the project is to include the removal of a carport and construction of a new 2-story garage in the secondary AVC. Staff submits the following historic district guidelines that may be appropriate to this application. For utilities, 2.3.1, 2, 3, and 6. For accessory structures, 2.6.1, 2, and that's it. Parking, 2.7.1. For design principles, 3.1.1, 2, and 4. For foundations, 4.1.3. For walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.4 and 5. For windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.2 and 4.3.3. For entrances, 4.4.4. For roofs, 4.5.6. For masonry, 5.1.3, 5.1.5. For paint, 5.4.2, 5.4.3, and 5.4.4. For contemporary materials, 5.5.1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Statements of fact based on the information contained in the application are: 1, the proposed accessory structure is in the tight weave development pattern. The project is new construction of an accessory structure in the secondary or tertiary AVC. 3, the proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. 4, the zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 5, the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So conditions, the application does not include some information related to completion of the project that requires review by either staff or the HPC. If the application is approved, the following conditions should be made for the COA. Plans and information for the utilities and the exterior lighting shall be approved, and a COA issued by HPC staff before the final inspection for these trades will be conducted by the building inspector. That concludes our staff report.
Okay, thank you much. Is help on the way?
Not yet. I haven't had the chance to call them.
Yeah, why don't we see if we can't get a little help? And so just a quick straw poll.
Sure. I also wanted to add, I do, if I get this up and running and/or I have hard copy available of the explanation of what the primary, secondary, and tertiary AVCs, how they're defined in the guidelines.
Okay, Council.
Mr. Chair, would you like to take a 5-minute recess to give staff an opportunity to reach out to technical support and perhaps get
That is an excellent idea. Can we have a motion, or I get to do that, don't I? Do we need a motion for that?
I would entertain a motion.
Let's ask, so can we have a motion for a 5-minute recess?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Your microphone is still on.
Okay. Here I am talking about holiday plans. All right, we're going to come out of recess and resume our meeting, and I think Matt's told me we've got our technical problem solved, so that's 2 good things. To remind me where we were, Matt, you gave the staff's assessment.
Correct.
All right, and then Sarah, did I give you a last word on that? Okay, and so I think that takes us to questions from commissioners. So we've got a lot to think about. Just to remind you and help us along the way, we've got a diagram on page where is that, Roscoe? 1-8 that illustrates our areas of visual concern.
On the screen.
And we've got that on the screen as well, so someone may want to talk about that a little bit and how it relates to this unique parcel. And also, we heard a good deal of input about scale and proportion and things of those natures. So, at some point in our conversation, we probably ought to touch on those things as well as anything else we have on our mind. So where would we like to start?
I'd like to start with, during our design review, we don't have audience participation, and so the audience participation is very important and gives us insight to things we may not have thought about. I do see some of the audience points of view. Being a corner lot, there's 2 primary locations, so that is questionable. I think it's in the footprint, but I think the height might be an issue, especially from the 2 balconies, the balcony that looks over the backyard and the one on the side that goes up to the upstairs. That's, again, you're looking over the neighbor's property, and you may not, the privacy issues might be in question. I can see that point of view. I think it's a beautiful garage, beautiful structure. Again, I wasn't sensitive to the neighbors. During the design review, I didn't think about that. So I think it's some things to consider.
Other thoughts?
I guess the tree, we are limited what we can do without an arborist, so we really can't discuss the tree until we get...
But since you brought that up, if and when we get to a motion, that may be something we could handle with a condition, just a thought.
Yeah, I guess the question would be why the second story?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Honestly, we were trying to make it not a box with a roof. And the balcony does not look out over the neighbor's property, it looks out towards the main house. And so we were trying to,
You can look sideways.
Can't be 2 feet from my fence.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah. If we could keep our comments down in the gallery. Go ahead, sir.
the idea was that it faced the main house, that it, there is a, kind of a 2-story balcony on that house that we will bring back at a later point for development. And, you know, that, the idea was that, really, that it not be a box with a roof like some of the examples that we've shown. Just trying to be sensitive to that streetscape. I will say that, you know, we have the roof pitch at 812. I mean, that could go down to 612 and shave off a couple of feet. I mean, we believe this structure is already much lower than the main house structure, and that is what we're relating to. That street has a mix of 2-story and smaller 1-story and then raised 1-story houses on it. And, you know, and smaller structures, you know, and so in that way, to me, this is that kind of smaller structure. It's not a full 2-story structure. It's you know, it's kind of a story and a small bit, and it's kind of what we were going for.
Okay, so answer the question. Yes, sir.
After design review, I went out and drove by the property in question. And I drove along Chain Street, and I was not on the commission when these guidelines were approved, but I take strong issue, as a matter of fact, with this being in a secondary or tertiary area. It is right there on Chain Street, right in the middle of everything. And I further say that the house next door is a 1-story house. And this would tower over that 1-story house next door. It is behind this Whitford house, but it is much closer to the Taylor and Pitcock house next door, and it would tower over that house. It would be very much interrupt the rhythm of the street as shown in 3.1 of the guidelines. Further, I would say that this Sanborn map that has been submitted, that the date cannot be identified. I'm familiar with the Sanborn maps, and I interpret that building as a 1-story structure. I don't think there's ever been a 2-story structure on this site. I really think that this does need to be a box with a roof and 1-story high. I'm looking at the picture on page 27 of the guidelines, which illustrates a box with a roof. That's what was chosen to illustrate the accessory structures. And it's a 2-car garage. And I have no objection to a 1-story 2-car garage on this site, but I think that the drawing as presented is disruptive to the rhythm of Chain Street and is incongruous with the adjoining structure on Chain Street.
And so in light of those comments, if we could circulate that Sanborn map again, Matt or Jamie. All right, and so while that's going around, other thoughts? I see you percolating on something.
Well, one of the issues, and I don't have any definitive comments at this point, but one of the concerns is mass scale, proportion, dimension, form, and rhythm of the proposed structure. Richard, the Ward Whitford dependency that's on Craven, since you were with Peter on the board, where was that located? I know that parcel was the Ward Whitford parcel was much bigger.
We don't know exactly where it was. I pulled up, while we were struggling with technical problems here, I pulled up several different Sanborn maps. The only one I can find that shows anything on this corner is the one from 1924, and it's a one-story structure. I don't think that's where that, I don't know. I can't say where that dependency was, but it was only a one-story structure. It was a box with a roof. And it would certainly not tower over the adjoining property. If we look at accessory structures, it says to reduce the scale of accessory structures.
Where are you looking?
This is 2.6.2. And I think we have to consider not only how this relates to this new Whitford house, but how it relates to the Tatum Pitcock property, which is right next door, which is one-story house.
Mr. Chair, are you entertaining comments at this time, or is the board deliberating?
If you would give us a moment. But I'll come back to you, I promise. So, any other thoughts based on our discussion so far?
Well, I am looking close at 1-8, and the picture in the lower left is not unlike this to show secondary, to Richard's point.
1-8.
Yeah, 1-8, the lower left sketch, the shaded area, two primaries on the left and right. It's a unique lot. It's not a square corner. So, I mean, I do question why it's 2 stories, but I'm not sure it's not in what could be considered a secondary area.
And so I think it's worth noting, looking at our diagram on 1-8, that starting on the left-hand side of the diagram, porches project into the primary, right? So the primary starts at the building facade, behind the porch, basically. And as we come around the corner, at least in our hypothetical diagram, we've got a one-story addition on the back of the building on the corner. And of course, again, it's the facade, the closest facade to the street that establishes the delineation between primary and secondary as at least I read this diagram. And so maybe that'll help us come to some conclusion on how that applies to the irregular shaped lot.
Well, I think if you take it literally that it's primary, you can't build anything there at all.
Well, the guidelines, guideline 2.6.1 for accessory structures, locate accessory structures in secondary or tertiary AVCs and behind primary structures when possible.
Right. My point is, I do think it is secondary because of the odd shape of the corner. And It's replacing an unattractive structure, but I do question the 2 stories in terms of scale. And our chairman, or vice chairman, always points out, look up the street and down the street.
And sometimes across the street.
Yeah, and there's ups and downs, but it would impact that first view on the corner.
Other thoughts? We ready to hear from the applicant again?
I'm also concerned with the stairwell outside the garage. If it was enclosed, it would be less opposing the neighbor next door, at least for privacy issues.
So,
Maybe it is enclosed.
It's
It
open.
is enclosed. It's enclosed.
It's not on the outside.
Sarah, you want to come clean that up as well as finish your thought from earlier?
No, it's absolutely enclosed,
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
And I'm showing the outline of the stairs so that we can figure out head heights.
Oh,
And there's a door out there. It's just,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
The owners who are here tonight, and who very much love this house and property, they have information about 512 Craven Street that apparently was on this site before and was moved. I'm not privy to that information, but if that's something that we can, that is the old kitchen of the property that was moved to moved to 512 Craven Street from this property, should have been in my presentation and is not. I know I'm giving you that information and, maybe that's something that Ben Parrish knows about. I do know that is true.
So let's hold tight real quickly, if we could. So technically, the audience is not participating at this point.
Right.
But I see you asked them a question, so I don't blame them for answering.
I apologize. That property, whether it sounds like part of it or most of it or all of it was moved, it is, on the front of it, it is a story and a half. It's not part of my presentation, so I can't say that this is something that I knew. So I just, I guess I'm telling you.
I think substantial and material probably, but not competent, because we really don't have an expert in documentation. So, I understand the point, but...
Yes, putting that out there, yes.
All right, thank you.
Well, so this is one of the things where, we tend to wrestle with this a bit. It's just the nature of the game, mass, scale, proportion, dimension, development pattern, so forth. I'm looking particularly on page 2-3, the guidelines for development pattern. The trip, what I call the trip rule, look to the left, look to the right, look across the street. Molly mentioned that. 2.1.2, preference should be given to contributing structures when defining development pattern. For infill construction, I would consider this an infill project. And then the footprint, scale, and proportion of infill construction shall be in keeping with neighboring properties. As an example, it's not appropriate to construct a 3-story structure in an area that's dominated by 1-story structures. I would also like to say that this is a extremely significant historic structure in New Bern. So it's worth pondering this a little bit more than we normally do.
So it seems to me we've got to do a couple things in fairly short order unless we're spending the night, which I hope we're not. One, deal with our area of visual concern. And then two, address the scale, mass, and proportion question, and one of those three attributes of your choosing. And I think the combination of those two things probably gets us to a motion on the application. So I'm trying really hard to hurt us in that direction, but I'm running out of pearls of wisdom to help move us along. Any other discussion? We've talked a lot about scale, mass, and proportion in terms of being incorrect, but we haven't talked about much in terms of why, if that makes any sense.
Well, I think I've got some notes here. I heard multiple comments from Ms. Thomas, from Ben, from Robert, related to...
And if I can interrupt, looking for something to tie us to a guideline in that...
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Well, 3.1 is where the design element, it was where or design principles was where I started. And it talks about rhythm and form, and it talks about the yeses and nos if we go to those illustrations. And whether we call it a primary or a secondary AVC on Change Street, we're still, to your point, Tim, it is an infill. And next door, it is a one-story. And around that area, there isn't a precedent for 1.5 stories or 2 stories. There might be up and down the street, but if you're looking at this illustration, if we can move to that 1.1, I don't have the page number.
This one here.
Yes, he's got it.
Yes. If you look at the column of yeses, these are all very uniform in size and scope and height. If you look at the no column, you see the very top illustration, you have a no, obviously, above the others, and then you have a house that's much wider than the narrow houses. So or you skip some evenness and rhythm. So I think that the mass, scale, proportion, and rhythm are really important on Change Street, especially given the type of lot we're dealing with, where we have either 2 primary or 2 very visible secondary areas. And personally, I would like to see, if we're not ready to make a motion tonight, I would like to see a design maybe come back, we could continue, and a possible second design that would address the design principles.
So,
if that's something that's even...
Yeah, if I could have the applicant answer at least their opinion on...
The house just next to the one-story house is a 2-story house. I think that the owners would like to withdraw it and bring it back so that we can represent the mass and scale a little bit better than we have.
So withdraw or continue?
Continue.
Continue.
Yes, not withdraw, continue, because I feel like I didn't realize there was going to be so much opposition. We think that it's an appropriate design, but I feel like people are not understanding that. And so I think that if you...
Sarah, remember too that it's an infill accessory structure, not a primary structure. So accessory has got to be secondary to the primaries that are on Change.
So, right, which is a complex situation. So this structure we feel is secondary to the primary, but also, needs to fit within that, what you're saying, fit within that streetscape. And that streetscape is, primary structures. On Linden, there are accessory structures that face the street that are the same proportions as this one. And so I think that if we give you some more of that information in a more direct way,
I think it's a good way.
That you may see what we're trying to do. And we will do some research on that other property on Craven Street, which was on here, which should have been in our application. And then we should have the letter from the arborist.
you.
So, Mr. Vice Chair, I think the request from the applicant is for you all to entertain a motion to continue this application to the next regularly scheduled meeting to allow the applicant an opportunity to supplement their application with some additional materials.
And we'll also need the date and time and place of that meeting as well.
January 17th.
And so I apologize, Richard, I got in front of you. You were getting ready to say something. Do you want to hold your powder, or?
I just want to read guideline 2.1.3. The footprint, scale, and proportion of infill construction shall be in keeping with neighboring properties. Neighboring.
Correct. Okay. And so with that,
Mr. Chairman, I move we continue this application until the next scheduled meeting, which is January 17th, 5:30 PM in this room, in order to give the applicant time to review their application, provide additional information and perspective.
we have a motion. Do we have
To
a second?
January 17th?
Yes.
There's no December.
Yeah, there's no December meeting. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Got a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Matt, my screen's not working.
Oh, right. I turned it off for experiment.
It's jumping this way still.
So Matt, after you take off your IT hat. Matt, we'll be ready to move to 308 Johnson Street when you are so inclined.
All right.
Get there.
All right, here we go. So this is the application, front page. All the appropriate information is indicated there. And it's signed and dated by the authorized representative, who is hereby authorized with this form, or thereby, or therewith, forthwith. Beginning of the drawing set includes an elevation of the front of the, or a photo of the front of the house for context. Project is not involved the house itself. And these are, it does actually on the back, sorry. So that's the front again, this is the back, the photo of the back of the house, the rear of the house. And this is a close-up of that right-hand corner of the house where most of the work will be done on the house. But most of the project is with regard to this garage here. And I can explain here that the garage, the roof will be removed, and most of the right side wall will be removed, but not all of it, and then the other two walls will remain pretty much intact, maybe shorter. Then these are views to the right side of the garage, and another view of the front of the garage, and an oblique view of the garage. In case we need to reference those. And there were some sample projects from the historic district. This is trying to be the site plan. Here we go. This is the existing survey of the site. Obviously, the primary structure here, the main street is on the left, and the garage is in the upper right here. You can see it's shown or depicted as basically three walls in a U shape, and then that front wall was where the garage doors were. And this is the architect's rendition of the same site plan, but as a demolition plan, showing at the top right here, the garage, removing the garage doors and most of that, what I described as the right side wall. I believe that's now the south wall. And then on the house, they'll be removing the doorway we saw in the photograph on the right of the back of the house and the stairway to that door. There'll also be removing 2 windows and enlarging that opening. And then this is the proposed plan, a little smaller. So once those walls and such are removed, the roof and the one portion of the wall and the front garage doors are removed from the existing garage, we're proposing to build a new garage or accessory structure, actually, inside the remains of the old garage, and leaving 3 to 5 feet of space between the two, and using that space for storage, and covering it with a shed roof. Meanwhile, over on the main house, after the door and the steps have been removed and the window opening enlarged for doors, the door that was removed will be filled, and the enlarged opening will be used for some French doors, and then they'll build a new deck here on the back of the house. And just to be sure, the new accessory structure is 8 feet away from, more than 8 feet away from the deck, from the proposed deck.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
At the beginning, you showed the house, and you said the house was not involved in this application?
Yes, I did correct myself. Yeah, it was, except for the back, yes. So sorry about that. All right. So now these are elevations of the new accessory structure. So here we have essentially the front that faces down the existing driveway with the entrance door and a pedimented entryway. And in the background, you can see off to the left is, say, the existing concrete wall on the left and the shed roof and a doorway to access the storage area back there. Meanwhile, we have 2 windows also on this front elevation. We have a metal shed roofing at the bottom of the larger gable, and a diamond vent in the tip of and the top of the gable. Then on the right-hand side, there's a double door entryway, again with a gable portico over that entryway. You can see the front entryway portico in dark shading on the left here. And then if we go back to the previous elevation, we also see this side entrance portico here also shown in shading. So back to the side elevation, on the right-hand side, shaded in the background, is the remains of the former garage covered, and a doorway added for the storage area on that end. The new roofing is to be hand seam metal roofing. All of the siding and the shingle work is all hardy board. The foundation is brick masonry. The windows are vinyl windows. The doors are vinyl sliding doors. We don't know what the front door is in this view here. So then the other views are dominated by the the existing concrete walls. So this is the back side, opposite the side with the driveway, and then the one on the right is the side facing the side property line. Okay, so again, the photos of the rear of the house and the overall view and then a close-up view of the area under, in the project. This door on the right is to be removed. The pent roof here is to be removed, and then the trim removed, and all of this filled in with wood siding. These stairs and railing are to be removed. The double window on the left are the windows to be removed, and then that window opening will be enlarged to allow for French door there. So here's the elevation of that. You can see the French door on the left, the decking, the railing, the set of three existing windows, and then immediately to the right of that is now blank. That is filled in with siding. And then the side view of that is a deck, typical deck with railing and steps. And here's detail of the hand railing to show that it conforms with requirements for having the spindles or balusters be centered under the handrail. So, our zoning and inspections report. The zoning administrator indicates it meets the requirements of the land use ordinance and it's authorized as an accessory structure only. Zoning permit will be required. And the chief building inspector indicates the project will require a building permit. And we're ready for our staff report.
Okay, thank you. Sarah, do you have anything to add at this time?
Just one thing, on the front of that accessory structure, the diamond is a window.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's probably not called out correctly, but yeah. And the shingles will be the fishtail shingles that match the house. That's actually shaded.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
Yeah, it's shading.
So just this diagonal pattern. Yeah, it ends up looking like louvers. Okay.
Yeah. Did you say a zoning permit would be required, or a building?
Yeah, both.
A zoning permit?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
There's a zoning permit for every project.
For every use.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak for or against the application? Seeing none, Matt.
All right. All right. Let's hope I don't have to zoom in or out. There we go. All right. So this is the findings and evaluation for Mike and MJ Wika and Go Architectural Design. For 308 Johnson Street. The historic property name is the Charles L. Ives House, built circa 1895. The date of the accessory structure is shown in the county assessor's information as 1920, but that is not entirely reliable for accuracy. So the non-contributing status for the for the accessory structure is non-contributing. The National Register inventory description from 2003, there is no reference to the accessory structure, but for context, the primary structure is described as Queen Anne style, 2.5 stories, T-plan, 2 bays wide, patterned shingles between first, second levels, multi-light arched window at stair landing, pedimented gables, dormers, interior chimney. The sand deck description for 1988, there's no reference to the carport structure, to the accessory structure. There is extensive information about the owners and the house, including these potentially relevant descriptions. The exterior finish of the Ives house is highlighted by a broad band of patterned shingles and a dentil course which run around the house between the first and second floor levels. Similar patterned shingles appear within the 3 pedimented gables, presenting the contrast of siding material, so characteristic of the Queen Anne style. The present front porch is later period colonial revival reworking of the original porch. So this project for 308 Johnson Street is to include the partial removal of an accessory structure, the reuse of the remains, and build a new accessory structure in the Tertiary AVC. Staff submits the following historic district design standards guidelines that may be appropriate to this application. Utilities 2.3.1, 2, 3, and 6. Accessory structures 2.6.1 and 2. Design principles 3.1.1, 2, and 4. For modifications 3.2.1 and 2. For foundations 4.1.3. For walls, trim, and ornamentation 4.2.1, 4, and 5. For windows, doors, and openings 4.3.1, 2, and 3. For entrances 4.4.4. For roofs, 4.5.4. For decks and patios, 4.6.2 and 3. For masonry, 5.1.3, 5.1.5. For wood, 5.2.1 and 2. For paint, 5.4.2, 3, and 4. For contemporary materials, 5.5.1, 2, 3, and 5. Statements of fact based on the information contained in the application are: 1, the proposed accessory structure is in the tight weave development pattern. 2, the project is new construction of an accessory structure in the secondary or tertiary AVC. The proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. The zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 5, the application is not incongruous with the guidelines. The application does not include some information related to completion of the project that requires review by either staff or the HPC. If the application is approved, the following conditions should be made for the COA. Plans and information for the utilities and the exterior lighting shall be approved and a COA issued by HPC staff before the final inspection for these trades will be conducted by the building inspector.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes our staff report.
Sarah, any final thoughts before we launch into discussion?
No.
Commissioners, where would we like to start?
I would like to say that this is about as congruous as it gets. I think this is as congruous as it gets. That's what I have to say.
Very good.
Do you have one question maybe for Matt? We've had 3 very similar. Why is the one reference to a zoning permit? Is it because it's a different classification or something different than the others?
No. They will all actually need a zoning permit. We have a relatively new person that is doing these zoning and inspections, and that was probably one of the last ones that he did. So by that time, he had realized that he could say that.
So it's not something unique or a surprise?
That shouldn't be, but it might be.
But other than that, I mean, it's secondary to the house, it's replacing the structure that's there, and I think it's appropriately, as Commissioner Parsons said, it's congruous, correct materials, scale and proportion, it's in the tertiary area, and no real issues.
Well, are we ready for a motion? Anyone? Anyone?
Okay, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move we find the application for certificate of appropriateness for 308 Johnson Street is not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, sections 15.411 through 15.429, and New Bern's Historic District standards based on the following specific guidelines: utilities 2.3.1, 2, 3, and 6, accessory structures 2.6.1 and 2, design principles 3.1.1, 2, and 4, modifications 3.2.1 and 2, foundations 4.1.3, walls, trim, and ornamentation 4.2.1, 4, and 5, windows, doors, and openings 4.3.1, 2, and 3, entrances 4.4.4, roofs 4.5.4, decks and patios 4.6.2 and 3, masonry 5.1.3 and 5, wood 5.2.1 and 2, paint 5.4.2, 3, and 4, and contemporary materials, 5.5.1, 2, 3, and 5. Statements of fact, the proposed accessory structure is in the tightly development pattern. The project is new construction of an accessory structure in the secondary or tertiary AVC. The proposed design, components, and materials meet the requirements of the historic district design standards. The zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. The application is not incongruous with the guidelines. I do propose a condition that plans and information for the utilities and exterior lighting shall be approved and a COA issued by the HPC staff before the final inspection for these trades will be conducted by the building inspector.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Can we have a motion to issue a COA?
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And then lastly, can we have a motion to approve the written decision?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. That gets us to the end of the hearings. So as I read our agenda, I don't see anything under old business. Yes, ma'am.
Can you get that tree survey back?
Yeah, I think Matt has it.
This too.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sarah, do you want this too?
Sure, if that's, yeah. Thank you for approving 2 of the 3.
No problem.
We'll get you more,
Okay.
just as a quick point, the first one on East Front Street is almost identical in height and footprint to the one on,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
We'll end up meeting at top.
Yes.
So I don't see any agenda items under old business. Is there anything a commissioner cares to bring up in that regard? Very good. We have a dwindling public. Are there any general public comments tonight? I'm hearing none. I don't think we have any new business, do we? No. And so that takes us to our reports. Anything worth bringing to our attention on major COAs issued or minor COAs issued, Matt?
No.
All right. We've got no extensions, COA extensions, extension requests on the docket. And that kind of brings us to commissioners' comments, if we have any. And doesn't sound like we have any, so...
Well, I do have under D, the updates by the administrator. Just to remind you that we do have that workshop coming up December 7th for resiliency in historic districts here in New Bern. And so if you haven't yet, if you're interested and haven't yet registered, you might do so soon. It's a most of the day workshop, I think from like 9 to 4 or something. And it includes lunch.
Yeah, and I think you sent some email out in that regard.
Yes, I hope so.
Yeah. I apologize for overlooking that. Motion to adjourn? So we've got a motion. We've got some seconds down here. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.
So who was the motion?
Gregory.
Second was...
Was this under the bench?
Richard did all the seconds.